Shocked neighbors gather around this makeshift cage. They can't believe a 12-year-old girl was confined here for 8 months. A couple, Basi and Esther from Akwa Ibom State, have been accused of caging their 12-year-old female relative inside this zinc house in the last 8 months without sufficient food. The couple and their 3 children live in a 1-bedroom apartment in this compound in Daninkowa area in Sokoto State. The child was rescued after neighbors discovered her and reported to the police.
Children were playing and they mistakenly fall on the cage where she was being kept, and the cage happens to open. And we now saw the girl and we started taking the immediate action by reporting to the appropriate authorities that are in charge, who can take further steps in order to make sure justice is gotten for the girl.
The Sokoto State Police Commissioner, in the company of the State Commissioner for Women and Children Affairs, as well as officials of a national agency for the prohibition of trafficking in persons, visit the crime scene to get first-hand information. They also visit the victim at the Sokoto State Specialist Hospital, where she's been attended to. Her gaunt body attests to how she was treated. She tells the government officials that the condemned deep freezer inside the zinc shed has been her makeshift bed since her aunt brought her to live with the family in Sokoto. She's also been denied an education.
Young girl.
The Commissioner of Police says such act is inhuman and the culprits will be prosecuted. The Sokoto State Commissioner for Women and Children Affairs is demanding that the police should diligently investigate the matter.
The quality to the young girl is so much that you cannot even believe it, that human beings can behave like that and can treat another human being like that. And since it has been discovered, the neighbors has also contributed a lot, because though they said they are not aware of this young girl being caged.
We are going to take action immediately by God's grace to see that this girl is not malnourished. We will take care of her medication, and we will collaborate with the police to ensure that they punish this thing and maybe take them to court for prosecution, and we will follow it.
Back at the scene of the crime, a crowd of spectators surround the residents as they get wind that the police have brought the alleged suspect to the house for more investigative work. The police is holding the suspect in custody for investigation and onward prosecution when the industrial action embarked upon by the Judicial Staff Union of Nigeria ends.
Yeah, a very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Good morning from Abuja and welcome to the program. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Well, what a way to start the week. Well, sometimes human angle stories are just one of the best ways to, get you started for the week. Maybe not every time politics. That story which broke in Sokoto, it doesn't need any more elaboration on it. But sometimes, one of the things that keep you going on this work is the power to do good. You see something that is wrong, it is brought to the limelight, and then you see that because it was brought to the limelight, those who need to do something about it, do something about it. And I think what it eventually does is that it rekindles hope in humanity, in the fact that, even though sometimes some people make you wonder whether there's any iota of humanity left in them, when you see the reaction of other people around them, you understand that there is still hope for the human race, and as such will keep going on. How do you explain that somebody was brought from a state to come live with somebody, no matter how poor you are? The best place you can find for that person is a cage, and then you make the person sleep in a deep freezer you're no longer using, and that goes on for 8 months, and nobody knows until children accidentally fall against the device in which you have entrapped the person. Even a dog if you keep a dog in a cage for 12 years, I mean, for that long, without, bringing the dog out for a walk and things of the sort, or giving the dog time to play around, everyone knows what the implications of that will be for an animal. How much more a human being? And so, we bring this story to light. There have been promises that things that ought to be done will be done. We can see the intervention of the police and also the intervention of the Commissioner for Women and Children Affairs in Sokoto State. I think that this is also just to say that journalists are also looking out. I'm sure as well as the people of that community who might not be able to believe that their neighbor was capable of such. Gentlemen.
Well, most certainly something very, very worrying. Where it's how do you even speak? You want to speak as a parent. You want to speak as a community resident. You want to speak as someone who is concerned about things, or you want to speak as a journalist. There are some things that, even though yes, I mean, right, tag to give the program a human angle story, but it involves an individual. It involves a human being, and I can't even imagine anyone being starved for 1 week, much less 8 months, too frail to walk, too emaciated to even make a move on her own. And what kind of intervention can one get? I can't even begin to imagine, the impact and the severity of what this girl has had to go through. It only raises one question in my mind, Markwe, as you spoke, and that is, excuse me, documentation. For God's sake, this girl was missing for 8 months, and no one could tell. I'm trying to imagine in my head how that was even possible in the first place. Let's just hope that one way or another we can do something to forestall such activities. Even what could be the reason? We shouldn't just take it as just one of those things. It's not the first time we are hearing of people being locked away in confinements in different parts of the country. We've heard of that community, where some people were tucked away out of public glare. A good number of people, not just one or two persons. And most of the time it involves children who cannot even do anything on their own, can't say a thing for themselves. I don't know where to begin, but we can only hope for the best.
Well, it just speaks to a lot of things, system, the structure that exists in society.
To protect the vulnerable.
Areas where we need to improve. I mean, today you see the dailies, people are killed, people are missing, and it just appears as though we're getting by, carrying on. And those are things those are red flags. You ask yourself about what's going on in society, where if the milk of human kindness disappears, boy, I don't think we want to be in that kind of situation. So hence the call for us to just adjust a lot of things about what makes us tick. So a good thing that, the rescue has happened. So we'll be looking to see those institutions, if we can, as we always say, learn the lessons of some of these things that happen and see how do we correct them, and then move forward and ensure that these kind of things, if not reduced to the barest minimum, but ensure that they do not just keep happening, as it were. So we'll keep tabs on that and hope that, the right things are eventually done. But we have to delve into the dailies now and take a look at how they reflect what is going on, perhaps with a view to pointing out things that we need to correct. So we'll start with The Guardian today. Military plane crashes, civil mishaps raise safety concerns. So picking up on where the unfortunate incident occurred, and you see Beechcraft King 350 aircraft records second crash in 3 months. Check inclement weather. Check inclement weather trend, Ojikutu warns. Stakeholders insist on thorough probe, public disclosure of findings, better regulatory oversight. Afenifere calls on military to check its fold, says 3 crashes in 4 months inexcusable. Nigerians expressing concern understandable, says Air Force spokesman. So, look, a lot has been said about what transpired, how did it happen, You know, so the information dissemination, coordination, some thought, are there conflicting info coming from those two forces? So the previous investigation that has occurred about this kind of crashes, do we know what transpired, or is this still going to be top secret?
You know, there's top secret, God. There are those who have also backdated a series of crashes, especially of military aircrafts, to 6 years ago, and have recorded 11 crashes, and that's been reported to be responsible for the death of 33 officers, and how many others who are not officers and men of the armed forces. So definitely cause for concern. Also brings to mind that statement from Christian Association of Nigeria saying these things should be tracked and stopped. So it's not just one of those things. Fakan says it should be treated as a national emergency, and I agree.
And sometimes you just wonder what became of that former NSA's crash. How did we handle it? What lessons did we learn? What corrections or adjustments did we make? So there are always questions about these kind of things. But look at the rider, not the rider now, the other one you find at the bottom strip of that, beneath that lead story. Southwest APC supports Southern Governor's ban on open grazing. Canvasses true federalism, more power and resources to states. Tinubu denies endorsing any candidate for Lagos Council elections. So there you go. The associated stories and riders to that particular one. So I think some of the big questions that people will always keep asking is, okay, after all of these meetings and backings, what next? What next? Because we're still faced with the huge security concerns that lots of people raise now. So just what next? So those are the things we beg for answers.
Most certainly. Hope we can find some this morning. The Daily Trust newspaper is also talking insecurity in its own way. 4 policemen, 44 others killed in gunmen attacks. And you see those infographics telling you of where those things happened across several parts of the country. The codes you have there, the color codes for those victims is that of police, civilians, kidnappers, and attacker. All of that on the front page. Some riders, police stations attacked in Ebonyi, Zamfara. 3 kidnappers lynched in Damawa. 5 herders killed, 59 cattle shot in Plateau. Sokoto villagers flee to Niger Republic. It's gotten that bad. That's what you have on page 5. And by the way, the image, that graphics you see there is just what happens across the Federation over the weekend. Right under that image there, intense lobby as Buhari shops for new army chief. The story is on page 4. Ali Kefi, Ahanotu, Saham, others touted jettison ethnicity. Expert tells president. It's what you have on the front page of the paper this morning. Mark?
Well, let's take a look at the Abuja Inquirer for you. They have this. School security is the lead story there. FCTA turns to vigilantes. Oh, yeah. The FCTA is asking vigilantes to be on the watch. Tempers high over murder of Uni Abuja students. FCT police nabbed 2 for illegal firearm robbery. Details on page 3 of the paper. How DSS foiled Abuja mayoral election. You might want to know the details on page 3 of the paper. Agitation is illegal. That's according to the FCTA. They have a number of other stories at the bottom there. Our plan to end multiple taxation, says FCTA. And Reps sacks aide for describing Shekau as true hero. I think it's just not enough to sack such a person. You might want to know who is having such an aide for a rep. Maybe he also needs some rehabilitation. But let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Take a look at New Telegraph. Akeredolu Fayemi absent as Southwest APC leaders demand true federalism. You see back Southern governors on open grazing ban. That's the first of the riders there. Tinubu, Akonde, Oshoba, Agbaja, Biamila, Sanwo-Olu. Others oppose separatist agitations and hate speech. So that's what you see right there. There you go. And then anxiety over appointment of new chief of army staff. Consultations, delay in announcements. Presidency zero search on 5 teeth arms, GOCs. Presidential aide cites insecurity for Buhari's absence at Atairu's burial. Okay, there you go. And you see this above this lead story. COVID-19 banks issue new conditions of service to staff. Step up cost-cutting measures. So, who knows if they're going to, deploy some of these deposit ATM machines. I don't know. Look, I guess there are so many considerations before that is ever done. But a bit of health tips here. Taking more steps daily increases longevity. But you can't take it just at this face value. You have to really, because a lot of them also will depend partly to a large extent perhaps on, what you eat as well. So that's New Telegraph this morning.
The Vanguard newspaper leads with State of the Nation. No to secession. Southwest governors, APC leaders declare. Stories on page 10. Tinubu, Oshoba, Akonde, Gbaja lead others to talks. Southwest APC leaders oppose separatists, ask agitators to desist. Call for devolution of powers to states. Back Southern governors, Asaba declaration, that's all. A lot of that you'll find on page 10 of the paper this morning. And of course, the chart you see, economy sustains recovery with 0.51% GDP growth in Q1 2021. Analysts split as MPC considers inflation GDP data. You've heard stories of vandalism of rail equipment. Well, right beside that graphic, Amechi orders arrest of vandals and buyers of stolen rail equipment. Stories on page 9. And power generation falls by 6.72% in 7 days. Stories on the inside pages. Vanguard Sports, EPL final day. Aston Villa 2, Chelsea 1. And guess what? Chelsea squeezed through. That's what you have right there, and so many other stories for your attention. Mr. and Mrs. The man saying to the woman, it's unfair to harass and embarrass male visitors to female hostels by the university authority at any time of the day. After all, the girls are adults. And Mrs. says, they know. They know that. They're only saying no to open grazing.
No comments. No comments to Mrs. Words. But look at this on the front page of Leadership. Kaduna military air crash raises concern over safety of Beechcraft. They have a timeline of a number of crashes. NAF 201 crashed February 21. NAF 203 crashed May 21, 2021. And crashed aircraft bought under Jonathan in 2014. Beechcraft costs between $2.5 million and $8 million, depending on age. Those are the stories they have on the front page of Leadership. They also have a world timeline, interestingly, of how this aircraft, this particular type of aircraft, the Beechcraft, has also been crashing around the world. You have from October 30, 2014, 2015, 2017, July 30, 2019 as well. And you have 2020, 2021, at least 2 crashes in 2021. So perhaps a good enough reason to take a second look at the aircraft and see whether the problem is with the aircraft. You have a number of other stories here. Nigeria's economy grows by 0.51% in Q1 2021, says MBS. So it looks like, despite the odds, there's still some growth. It's a page 4 read for you. You might want to look at the political stories at the bottom, but let's leave it there for Leadership newspapers.
Blueprint is the next one here. So they focus on insecurity. So you see, bandits abduct 14 in Kaduna. NAF rescues scores. That's just keeping up with some of these scenarios. But the riders are not any cherry. 20 gunmen invade FCT. Abduct father, son. Police foil abduction of motorists in Osun. Abuja monarch urge more surveillance. Cleric warns on another terrorist group. Well, so it just keeps unfolding. You just wow. And then you see just following up on this particular story, NDLEA intercept 8 billion naira cocaine, arrests drug kingpin at Lagos airport. So there you go. Just so many cases there to just raise concerns and attention or pointers to what needs to be addressed and sorted. That's Blueprints this morning.
Nigerian News Direct has this one. Nigeria's economy grows by 0.51% in Q1 and amid 1.72 mbpd oil production. Find that story on page 2. LCCI raises concern over hospitality, entertainment sectors. Analysts express shock over non-oil sector weak contribution. Find all of that on the inside pages today. And NIPS 2021 to hold as schedules, as according to Silver. Find out all of that on page 4 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
Okay, take a look at Nigerian Tribune next. Tinubu Gbaja, APC Southwest leaders, governors oppose secession, back southern governors on open grazing, want true federalism. Yeah, that's the big lead right there. Secession, not solution. 1999 Constitution is problem. That's from Adebanjo. Well, there's several other stories. So that's Tribune this morning.
Daily Times newspaper has this one, and it's very simple. Again, Nigeria exits recession. That's what you have on the front page of the paper, and of course a few other stories you'll find right under that. Ban on open grazing, death in cell, how father of 3 died in congested task force cell. And this last one, NECO, 6.5 billion naira contracts. Senate questions NECO over failure to follow due process. Story is on page 3 of the Daily Times newspaper.
Okay, so there you go then. That is it with a look at some of the dailies here today. Well, back in a moment. Do stay with us.
After over 3 hours of deliberations, they emerged from the meeting room and straight they reviewed the agenda. Former APC National Chairman Chief B.C. Akande does the telling, and first they make known their position on some of the recent agitations by some groups calling for secession.
We express our strong opposition to separatist agitation and hate speeches, while urging those indulging in such to desist forthwith, we renew our belief in the unity, stability, and sustainability of the country.
That stated, and to a very popular debate across the land, restructuring, their demand is clear: more power to the states.
We hold to the view that through federalism, where more power and resources are allocated to the states, through federalism and the reallocation of resources and authority that comes with it, will empower the states to solve localized issues before they spread and transform into national ones.
The Southern Governor's stance on open grazing is endorsed here, and they have a demand from the central bank.
We endorse the position of the Southern Governors taken at their May 11, 2021 summit in Asaba, Delta State, regarding ranching federal government to provide, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, short, medium, and long-term financing for states and those who may wish to set up ranches.
The APC leader and former Lagos Governor Bola Tinubu addresses a different matter, and it is about the forthcoming Lagos local government election and the internal affairs of the APC.
I have not endorsed or proclaimed anybody, not one single person, as anointed candidate for our party, APC.
This is yet another meeting of southern political leaders, one of several in the past few days, their positions similar and pointing at one thing: the state of the nation and its structure, begging for a fixing. Shunwa Kimale, reporting for Channels Television News.
Tell me any other state that has inaugurated the Bubago in the Southeast. It was agreed on, but did they inaugurate it? Remember that the leader or the so-called leader or person in charge of the so-called Bubago or in the South security in Southeast is the immediate elder brother to the governor, retired General Obiumai. Why are they taking over the control of such things here in Ebonyi? Do we have security issues? We never had security issues here. Security issues started coming up when he started attacking the ASN, IPOB and whatever, aligning himself with the Fulanis. That was how everything started happening. The case in point is what happened at Ohuku local government. There was crisis there. He quickly went to the air to release that it was not borne by the herdsmen. The same person turned in less than 72 hours to say it was herdsmen hired by the Aguila people. And the Aguila people had to respond. How can somebody be speaking from all through his mouth without being focused?
Ebubago has come to stay, well known by the security agencies. They are on training now by the security agencies. If the federal government, if the security agencies at the national level don't know that Ebubago is in existence, they wouldn't have permitted their security agencies down here in the state level to go in for the training of those security outfits. They are not after any PDP member and can never be after any member of the PDP. What they are after is the hoodlums that is terrorizing the state to make sure that here is the security of the state is the way it should be. So the essence of calling on this is that all the whole of the allegations he leveled against Ebubago are all falsehoods.
Welcome back. Well, just following up on developments in different parts of the country, but this time starting off with Ebonyi State. We've got the Commissioner for Information, Uche Oji, joining us this morning. Good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Well, as you are well aware, the PDP caucus in the National Assembly did petition saying, look, that the state governments and some of the officials in the state are deploying weapons. They are just targeting the opposition in the name of security, as you heard part of it in the report which we just played now. And they are not stopping at nothing. They say that all of those allegations that they have made have been chronicled over time. You heard about this. What is going on?
Chamberlain, I must say that it is very regrettable and most disappointing that our representatives in the National Assembly, who of course are on the platform of PDP, could be so petty, so malicious, especially in the face of insecurity that we have faced, to begin to raise allegations that are most unfounded, most irresponsible, and most political. We as a people of Ebonyi State, are really disappointed in that very media war against the state government at this point, that we are all together in one mood trying to tackle the issue of insecurity. And it is most appalling that it is coming from people that should have ordinarily been very responsible. I know the anchor of that group was once a governor and a senator, of course, two-time senator and one-time minister. And I know what he suffered when he was a governor. And for him to offer himself as an instrument to be a group in Abuja, to be raising all forms of alarms that are very false, it is very appalling. And I think they have to account to the people of Ebonyi State for that. But let me mention that Ebonyi State government has been doing a great deal in ensuring that we tackle insecurity, which is just a national menace that is around the entire country.
Just before you proceed on that one, are you suggesting that personalities such as the former governor, who's a senator now, and then former SGF and the likes, they are just peddling falsehood? Because what they say is that the governor is arming all sorts of indiscriminate groups, cultists, because of people who refuse to defect with him to the APC, and now they are being targeted. Are those frivolous?
I tell you, Chamberlain, that those political leaders, I must say, they are being very petty, and we know the cause. Before 2021, when the governor did defect to All Progressive Congress, they were together, and I know the burden they wear, the kind of burden they wear to the government. And when government defected to APC, they felt they were going to be the lord of the manor in PDP. And that was when they started to plan all sorts of lies and falsehood. Every day they dish out a press release, briefing against the government, telling lies. Now in this case, they said the Bubago is just a machination or an instrument in the hand of the state government to deal with opposition forces. And that is far from the truth. On the 11th day of April 2021, the governors of the Southeast, in reaction to the situation in the Southeast on abated criminalities, had to make some resolutions, one of which was to constitute a Bubago in the entire Southeast. And of course, to also engage stakeholders. And the governor of Ebonyi State, as chairman of Southeast Governors Forum, had to take the bull by the horn to ensure that that very resolution was really implemented. So he had to constitute a Bubago in the state. And these people have been doing well. I can tell you that even in this May alone, we have had a lot of successes. I'm sure you are hearing about that. Even yesterday, when bandits tried to attack a police station, they were repelled, and I'm sure one of the bandits was got down, and we are going to get some useful information about the people that are actually masterminding that act. And I can say also that even within this month, that the attempt to also to attack a bank was also repelled. And in that case, some people were arrested, information was given. Who are the persons that are doing all of these things? The Bubagu people are there gathering information, liaising with the stakeholders to ensure that information is given. So with the formation of Ebonyi in Ebonyi State, we are beginning to see results, and that is because of the collaboration. And so I don't see where people who don't have concern. You can see that they have never had any press briefing to say that they sympathize with the people of Ebonyi State, or even that they are in support of the position of government in tackling criminalities in the state or even in the nation. And so that is why I said it is appalling that they could be politicizing security. It is very dangerous. It's a bad omen. You see a lot of social media falsehood that are being peddled. We have also done our intelligence and we saw that it is coming from them. It is part of their plot, but then I give it to them, they lack vision because they have got no people who are really working for the state government.
Well, at the moment, they also say that this group has been armed and inaugurated under the guise of a Bubagu. But if you say that they are, the Bubagu is collaborating, who are they collaborating with? And how do they supervise those who have been armed to ensure that they're not misused?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that if you look at the formation of Bubagu, the constitution of the membership and the selection process, you will see that it's people-oriented based on recommendations by traditional rulers, union leaders, stakeholders in the various communities. And of course, I will need to also inform you that the governor had a strategy of mobilizing them and fortifying them with security gadgets and also patrol vans. So in each of the 140 number communities we have, the governor bought security vans for 140 number for the various communities, and of course motorcycles that will go to the rural, the remotest part of the communities. Now, what is the supervision process? One, for the training is done by the conventional security outfit, and they have their principles, they have their ethos, they have their do's and don'ts, they have their regulations. And two, legislations also have been made to back up, of course, the Bubagu at the state level, because of course we are operating a federating kind of a nation, whereby each state has its powers, powers to also constitute all of these outfits. And so what is happening is that the stakeholders recommended the right persons who have credibility of character, moral character and also mental character that can...
Who are these stakeholders?
Stakeholders are made up of council chairmen, traditional rulers, religious leaders, and even, of course, office holders, even former and present, especially those that can avail themselves. And, of course, you do know that the governor, when he returned from this Southeast Summit, Security Summit, he had to convene a meeting of all stakeholders, clan by clan, what we call clan in Ebonyi State. Now engaging the religious leaders, the town union leaders, security, former security officials, and of course, security chiefs, to discuss the way forward in each clan, how they can give useful information on how to tackle insecurity. I can tell you that since that happened, we are beginning to see success. But then, these politicians in Abuja should know that we're not talking about politics right now. We're talking about the security of lives and property of the people of Ebonyi State and the nation. I wish them good luck in their allegations, but they have to know that our people are aware that they have never shown consent to the happenings in Ebonyi State. They call themselves a caucus made up of freshers and old legislators. That is not caucus. These people, if you see the way the anchor read the communique, that is, sorry, with due respect, Senator Samegu, you see unpreparedness, you see somebody who has a burden, a moral burden of presenting falsehood, and we are so surprised that he has not learned a lesson from what happened when he was a governor between 1999 and 2007, where he bowed out, and I'm sure he vowed that he would never form Abuja Group, but today that burden needs to be discharged.
Well, there was a question Chamberlain asked that you are yet to quite address, and that is the arming of the people that you say, government has dispensed. Part of the allegation against the government is that young people across the certain local governments have been armed with AK-47 guns.
Yeah.
What kind of arms are the people armed with,
Yeah, that is part of that very falsehood that I was going to explain to you. They raise issues of our youths, using AK-47. The security will have to discuss, I have to explain that because I know it is not true. They also said that the cultists are being used to terrorize the place, whereas we are fighting against the menace of cultism in the state. They also said that Bubago is after opposition forces and no evidence, nothing to show about that.
Well, you addressed all of that, but the question is, what kind of arms do the people that government has engaged, what kind of arms are they armed with?
Yeah, you need to know that so far the issue of security is within the exclusive list. And we also know our limits and the powers of Ebonyi State government. We are concentrating on information gathering, intelligence, collaboration, and also cooperation, because the people, the youths that are involved are really the people that know their onions, know the environment, so they give useful information. They help to also bring about proactive reactions in all the issues. So we do not bear arm. Our people don't bear arm. It's unfortunate that these senators and legislators under the platform of PDP are branding our youth criminals. And I'm sure they will be accountable to the people. These are the people that gave them mandate, and they went to Abuja to call them in turn criminal elements. That is too unfair of these people. I'm sure they will need to apologize to the people of Ebonyi State. We don't bear arms.
Well, there was something you said the other time. You talked about engaging, various stakeholders. Do the opposition parties in the states, those who are not particularly on the same page with the governor, are they also being engaged by way of carrying everybody along in the state for the common purpose of moving Ebonyi State forward? Yeah,
apart from the about 5 members of the House of Reps and 3 senators, the rest of the stakeholder, of course, with the person that is also working with them, the former Senate president. The rest of the stakeholders are working with Ebonyi State government. And incidentally, I'm Commissioner for Information. I can tell you that every invitation we make is available to every person without political coloration or partisan leaning. And we would always invite all concerned, all stakeholders, former office holders, present office holders, including National Assembly. But they would, decline from coming, just this few number of people. Let me tell you, since this issue of insecurity started, they have not come home. They are just rather, having a plot, clandestine plot and that on how to really, go on media war against the state government. But then we are very, very much mindful of that. So we are not even dissipating energy in replying there, but we are focused, doing the right thing. I can tell you today, Ebonyi is very calm, and any attempt by bandits to attack any place will always be resisted, and we get results just like what you saw yesterday. And so these people should know that we also have National Assembly members in other states, and all of these people have been very moody, talking about how to sort the problems in their place. Nobody has gone on air to begin to attack their government. I tell you one thing, Senator Sam Egu's community one time, through his boys, raised a false alarm that a group of people that were wearing army uniform attacked and abducted, or rather kidnapped. Well, it came to be that it was his town leaders that had issues within themselves over land dispute. And the police waded in and saw that they merely had conflict, and eventually the people were released. In that same conference, the same people that were working for this senator that were raising such alarm. So why false alarm in the face of this moody situation? So what would you do? We see ourselves? Because they say that they've got audio evidence of the governor's younger brother, but how he was addressing agents of government and how to deploy their security apparatus against perceived political opponents. What happens if they come forward with that? He who asserts must prove. Incidentally, I'm a lawyer. I know the implication of alleging falsely. And we are waiting for them. Let them go and prove all those allegations that they are making in the pages of newspaper. We have security agencies that are doing their work, and I think that security matters are not even meant to, to be addressed in the pages of newspaper. as a first port of call, except for the, in such a way, manner that it can help the public in also guiding against insecurity.
All right, so hopefully when they do come up with that part, because all these allegations, you say that they can't substantiate them, but if they then come up and say, look, because they went beyond saying they've got audio evidence, they equally said we've got pictorial evidence of the development center activities, some of them clutching guns as well. So what happens if they come up with those?
Yeah, I know they can be much more evil than this.
By having evidence?
Yeah, no, let me tell you, there was a case of a former appointee of government that had been going everywhere, sponsored by these National Assembly members under the platform of PDP, has been going everywhere. The next thing he did was to, from what I'm seeing, to organize for an alleged abduction. From abduction, they call it kidnapping, but we know the ingredients of kidnapping and ingredients of abduction. Now, the same people that raised alarm that this boy was abducted, they were the first to raise alarm. There was no report at the police. They were also the first people that raised alarm that the boy had been released. They saw him being abducted. They saw him being released. They went on air from Abakaliki. They went to Enugu to address press. They didn't go to police. And so why is it that they were the same people that saw him being abducted, the same people that saw him being released? And so there is more to it. They can be very, very petty, but we want to assure them that the people of Ebonyi State are wiser. These are the people who have been given a mandate and they could not deliver, and the people are waiting for them to come back and get the automatic ticket in PDP, which is what they are yearning for in 2023. That's nothing more, nothing less than that they are looking for automatic ticket in PDP. They will be given, but then our people are waiting to tell them that we are wiser.
Is this an indication that all of those development plans to engage or provide job opportunities or environment for youth in Ebonyi State is not going as planned?
Indeed, it is going as planned. My governor has been a very proactive leader. When we had NSAS issues, the federal government met and said each state should engage the youths by way of summit or conference or dialogue. The governor became the first to do it. It was a very robust 7-day summit, and we discussed issues on how we can engage the youths, including mainstreaming of the youth in national politics. Now, no any other state has done that. Others are still yet to do that. Now, after the 11th April summit in the whole of Southeast, held in Owerri, the governor became the first to really implement the resolutions. And again, I can tell you that the governor has also approved 3 billion naira for empowerment of our youth and women under what we call NSAS Empowerment Program. And these are programs that are ready to be harnessed and assessed by our youth and women, except that we needed to lower the tempo of insecurity, which is actually what is garnering attention now from state government. I'm sure, very sure that with all the facilities government has curated, by the time they will begin to function, including the shopping mall that we have, that we will engage the youth with, including the national market that we have, including the airport, international airport that we are building that is getting to about 60% completion, we will engage all of these youths. I want to tell you one thing. Government also believes that we cannot do industrialization alone. We need to create environment and invite or attract investors. And we are beginning to have a number of them. We have a pharmaceutical company that is investing $5 million in Ebonyi State. We have another company that is coming on Thursday. We're going to sign an agreement with that company. All is geared towards ensuring industrialization. And when our people are kept busy, all of these situations will be solved naturally. Our governor believes not in militarization in the face of insecurity, but he believes in constructive engagement, appeals and prayers to the people that are doing all of these things, and also prayers to God, because ultimately God is the answer to all of these things. So we are praying because we know everything depends on God, but we are working as if everything depends on our strategies.
How many people are involved in this program that you talked about?
How
many people is government engaging in this project, this employment project?
Yeah, if I got you right, is it the empowerment program?
Yes.
Of NSAS. So far, we have shortlisted about 3,000 number using women. We got the Zenith Bank to do the needful in terms of looking at their bankable proposals or business proposals, and that is going on as I speak with you. But our first port of call is to get every local government have about 200 number persons who must be empowered immediately, and there is no restriction about the class of people, whether they are youths, of NSAS, whether they are civil servants, whether they are businessmen. As far as you have got a good bankable proposal, of course, is going to be a facility, and it is going to be monitored to ensure that there is no waste. Our people are very responsible and responsive. They are people of honor and integrity. I can tell you the people believe in the efficacy of the programs, empowerment programs of our dear governor, and at all times the people are with him. Just come to Ebonyi, you'll see. In fact, if I discuss about Ebonyi with you, you will not appreciate until you take a walk to Ebonyi instead. Then that's where you seek to have a handshake with our dear governor.
All right, well, we'll come back and get your concluding thoughts in just a moment. Please join us again.
COVID-19, a new strain of virus from the family of coronaviruses, has been recorded in over 200 countries, areas, and territories around the world. The highly infectious virus is transmitted primarily via droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose of an infected person through coughing or sneezing. These droplets can then be acquired by anyone in close contact through breathing in the droplets or by touching objects and surfaces with the droplets and then touching the nose, mouth, or eyes. While it's been said that some infected persons may not display symptoms, common signs of COVID-19 infection include dry cough, fever, sore throat or diarrhea, and difficulty in breathing. Do you or someone close to you have these symptoms? Call the following numbers.
Here today, gone tomorrow. 'Cause you're volatile like the water, and you promise what you don't know. Sometimes it's right and then it's so wrong. Them go do like say them why. We promise you the world. Brother, all now worship. Upon all of the open eye, I see no feel water, like you up the letter.
The Smartphone Network. Only strategic and innovative leaders can successfully inspire their organization to address all stakeholders' needs by creating an entrepreneurial culture for effective and efficient achievement of the organization's goals. Secure a spot at Texum UK's two-day virtual program tagged Leading and Driving Innovation for Success During Tough Times. Leveraging on Texum's tested and proven methodologies that have enhanced over 4,000 executives' leadership quotient in 11 years, eminent faculties would anchor this program. Join illustrious Dr. Tony Raven, CEO of Cambridge University Enterprise, and Professor Wim van Haverbeck, Professor of Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship at University of Surrey and ESAD. Date, May 26-27, 2021. Venue, live virtual and engaging sessions. Cost, £750 after 50% discount. For more information, please visit www.texum.co.uk or email exec@texum.co.uk or call +44 7425 883 791. Texum, insights that inspire, actions that change the world.
Hello and welcome. I am Manny. This is The Chat.
Agriculture remains the backbone of our economy. And the earlier we encourage students to come in, the better.
He was going to be a prime minister after Tafawa Balewa. The NFA used to go and buy jerseys from Ojuelegba.
I'm a strong advocate for women getting an education. make sure you get your facts correctly.
Never, never you run away. Yeah. No, I didn't run away. I only left.
Girl children must face their own destiny.
The unforgettables and a lifetime to remember. The Chat.
Showing Sundays, 1:30 p.m. on DSTV and 9:30 p.m. on Channels 24.
Don't forget.
Thanks for staying with us. Uche Oji is still here with us. He's Commissioner for Information in Ebonyi State. Well, that report that says that there was an attack on Ebonyi Divisional Headquarters of the police, is something that's still getting some attention. But, when you talked about security earlier, you talked about the fact that people engaged by the state government were in the business of gathering intelligence information to forestall attacks. I'm wondering, because we know that, I still find it difficult to believe that any attack would happen on any infrastructure of government and government will not be aware at all. So you want to tell us exactly what happened? Was it a failure of intelligence? Was it that we were caught unawares about this attack?
Yeah, the kind of war that we are facing is a guerrilla kind of war. People would plan to levy war, level war, and they will appear from a particular place. What is important is the fact that security agencies, together with Bubago, were able to foil their plan, were able to repel their plan, and in the course of that, one of the bandits was got dead, and of course some incriminating materials were recovered, including phones, and I think that it is going to help security agencies in gathering more information about the modus operandi of these bandits. But what is important is that we know that we are no longer talking about criminal elements from outside. We are looking at people within the shores of the state who have got no reason at all to begin to attack public facilities. But they are doing that perhaps because they were brainwashed. And of course, we are beginning to look on a second time on the activities of these opposition forces through their social media war and through their incitements. I think that is helping to enhance the unabated activities of this criminal element. So we're going to look beyond the action and to look at those that are funding them. So with all of this information gathering that we are having is going to help us. And let me also mention that this police headquarters is a police station, as it were, in a local government, but it's called Ebonyi local government, not Ebonyi state. And so it is over 40 to 50 kilometers away from the metropolis, and I'm sure that the little issues we are having are happening outside the shores of the metropolis and the satellite towns, and so we are going to really deploy more efforts towards going to the hinterland to repel their plans.
Well, have we been able to track what the remote causes of these myriad of attacks is? Or what are some of the immediate causes or remote causes that government may have found out?
Yeah, I give it to them that issue of marginalization of Southeast, issue of underdevelopment and non-engagement of the youths brought about by bad leadership of the past actually could have been the remote cause of this. But the brainwashing and the unnecessary empathy and support by people who feel that they are not in the corridors of power is actually much more fueling than we think. And I think that we should have a rethink. We have to be very patriotic. Why is it that we will not begin to support establishments in their plan to ensure that we bring about we reduce insecurity in our various domains? So I think it's also an immediate cause when people are saying, go ahead, it's fine, burn, kill, do this. And look at what senators and National Assembly members from Ebonyi of PDP platform could go to say that it was when Ebonyi State attacked ESN that they started attacking back. Who told them that? ESN has not said that. IPOP has not said that. Governor's take is that we should not bring in organizations into all of this. Of course, we are aware of the principle of vicarious liability. And so whoever commits offense should go in for it. If you commit a crime, you're a criminal. Do not go to bring names that are not, that they never sent you to do anything. And that is the thinking of government. But I feel that government has been very magnanimous. We have given amnesty. If they can't lay down their arms, government will rehabilitate them and put them into useful means of livelihood. That is the way to go.
Okay. Well, there's this question we just pulled from someone who is watching right now and listening to you. That when you say that, you know, Ebonyi, that what Ebonyi used in repelling the attack. Well, okay, he's interested in knowing what Ebonyi used in repelling the attack on a bank and a police station, as you mentioned earlier, because you said they are not armed. They are just for gathering information. So then how did they repel the attack?
Yeah, information, of course, you know, is very critical. In this part of the world, we believe so much in the power of God. But in advanced cities of the world, we believe so much in the power of intelligence. And that is why even in advanced countries, they don't come to discuss security in media platforms, no. But here, everybody would like to come and say, the president is the problem, the governor is the problem. That is not the way to go. So in Ebonyi State, these Ebonyi are starting with intelligence gathering because they live with the people. They understand that these criminals are also living with us. So we try to monitor the operations, the activities. For instance, when the attack at one of the banks was repelled, information was given by Ebonyi on one physician that normally gives them medication. And the police had to move in waiting to get that physician. That physician was made to confess how the operators, how those criminals are operating their modus operandi. And that was through that process that their camp was discovered and it was destroyed. And of course, the native doctor that was, you know, aiding them was also, his camp was also destroyed. And about 3 people were gone down in the process. And of course, so many others got injury. And government is doing everything to assist the security agencies to ensure that they get to the root of all of those things.
Well, Commissioner, the police release said as soon as they got there, about 1,200 hours of dates, driving in the vehicle mentioned, they started shooting sporadically at the policemen on duty, but were swiftly challenged and repelled. I'm asking, did they use any weapons, or it was just information that they used to repel gunmen?
I told you that security agencies, particularly the police that did the operation yesterday, that they were working on the intelligence provided by the Ebonyi. So it was a collaboration and cooperation issue. So the real operation of repelling, issue of use of arm was that the doing of the police, as it were. Of course, the CP has been a very wonderful, vibrant, very proactive CP that has done a lot. Of course, you remember there was a time the CP also got intelligence report about somebody that was going to smuggle, transport some weapons to Umuahia, Abia State. And information was given through Ebonyi, and the police had to work on the information and got those weapons, those ammunitions, and they were recovered. And I'm sure they are trailing the person that was involved in this. So this is the cooperation that is required, and it's going to help us a lot. We never had all of these achievements, all of these successes before Ebonyi was consulted.
Well, as you spoke earlier, some of the people who are watching you right now, you know, are suspecting that there's a lot of political undertone in what you've been talking about. In fact, one of them says, and I quote, "It'll be grave if we politicized insecurity in the polity. All stakeholders must sheath their political kimono and wear the toga of statesmanship, as collectively we can upstage these outlaws. Blame game in Ebonyi. ain't going to work as it is now. How do you respond to this?
Exactly. Fantastic reaction from the members of the public, and I think it's a food for thought for the people that are into blame game, who aren't even dissipating energy in those distractions. So it's for them to understand that the people are watching them, and they need to play their role. They need to be part of the security process in the state, in every state as it were, than to go into blame game and to begin to raise non-existent issues. We are talking about security of our people, and you are talking about the politics of tomorrow. Why? People must have conscience, for goodness sake.
But there are those who, again, watching you right now, would like to know what you have to say about Kubaroha Youth Assembly, who is a group of notorious criminals. You know about them?
Yeah, it is very foolhardy for anybody to begin to tag Ebonyi youths as notorious criminals. Akobara Youth Assembly is made up of the youths and women of Ebonyi State that believe in the programs and policies of Akobara. Akobara means the wealth of the governor, both the mental wealth, moral wealth, everything is for the people. And these youths are together working to ensure that the programs and policies are projected to the various communities, so that people will be aware of what government is doing, and they're also giving a lot of support, political support, and also social support to government of the day. I want to say that it is very, very appalling that people will tag our wonderful youths as the criminals, and this is one of the outcome of our NSA summit, that youth should be given their pride of place. You shouldn't be tagged criminals, and I wish them good luck.
Okay. And so do we wish you, in all of the endeavors, all of the things that you're doing to make Nigeria a better place. Uche Oji, Commissioner for Information in Ebonyi State, thank you so much for your time and thoughts today. Well, back in a moment. Please stay with us.
Former Archbishop of Abuja Diocese receiving members of the TIEF professional group at his residence in Abuja. The delegation is here to discuss the rising insecurity across the country, including Benue State, and to solicit the support of the retired Archbishop for solutions.
We're talking about secession.
The leader of the delegation gives a picture of the security situation in Benue State, highlighting some possible solutions.
In Benue, in Taraba and in Nasarawa State, over 1 million people have been displaced. Property, food and farms worth billions of naira have been destroyed in Benue, in Nasarawa and Taraba states. We have issues with the Nigerian army. We think that government is complicit. We think that the Nigerian army sometimes are in support of what is happening.
In his response, the former Archbishop of Abuja Diocese, who is in his retirement, decries the degenerating security situation across the country. While he disagrees with separatist movements, he calls for an urgent national dialogue to negotiate the terms of remaining as one indivisible nation.
I cannot support anybody who is asking for a war to liberate ourselves, so to speak. All the different secession movements. We must admit that the unity of Nigeria is negotiable, and that in fact right now Nigeria is up for negotiation. We don't like what we see, but we still think Nigeria as a nation, one nation, is desirable and viable and feasible. Only we need to pay the price of unity.
Insecurity in forms of banditry, kidnapping and terrorism is a national challenge that the Nigeria police and the armed forces continue to grapple with, and the inability of the government to squarely address the challenge is raising concerns which this group is hoping will be resolved soon.
Welcome back. We're keeping tabs on all of these comments about true federalism, restructuring. What should we be doing next? Well, now we've got Onueze Okocha, MFR, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, former President of the NBA, the former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Rivers State, who joins us this morning. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us today on the program. Now, several rhetorics making the rounds about what kind of steps the country should be taking in the name of true federalism, restructuring, and even up till this morning, and who knows, for some time to come, it still will be there. You may have heard some of them. So give us your impression as to what is the best way that these kind of rhetoric should be done, or the kind of steps we should be taking, perhaps legally or from the National Assembly, to be seen to be doing much more than just talk.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, sir.
Can you see me?
We can hear you.
Can you see me?
Okay, we can see you, and I'm told we can.
I'm not seeing you. That's why I'm asking that.
We can hear you, sir. We can see you now.
I can't see myself. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just go ahead.
Well, let me say thank you for inviting me to this program, and also greet your listeners and our viewers if there are any links by television. I say basically that the problem with Nigeria can only be effectively resolved by a true and properly convened national conference. We are presently facing difficulties because of the inconsistencies and incongruities in our constitution. The 1999 constitution that was bequeathed to us by the departing military administration headed by General Abdul Salam Abubakar. Since then, we as Nigerians have been tinkering with it. It hasn't served us well, and every once in a while, you hear the National Assembly, that group that says they are the elected representatives of the peoples of Nigeria, doing what they say, amendment, modification, and so on and so forth. That is not going to work. Why? Because the National Assembly itself is lopsided, constituted in such a way that the interests of certain portions and parts of this country are not adequately represented. So we have to put our heads together, put on our thinking caps, and find a way to convoke a proper national conference so that these issues can be trashed out. I'm aware, under Obasanjo, there was a national conference. The report is there. It's still gathering dust. Under President Jonathan, there was a national conference. The report is there, and this one under Jonathan. Now here, many of the people who were at that conference basically agreed on most of the topics that were raised. But we know that, again, we are expecting the National Assembly to articulate those points. But they cannot, because, as I say, they are lopsided. They don't represent us. Some of them are, representing a weighted majority. Because, you see, everybody knows that the way you get to the National Assembly is on the basis of constituencies, senatorial zones, federal constituencies. So these things are lopsided, and I hope that Nigerians can agree that for the love of our country, let us all agree to meet together on a basis that will show that every ethnic nationality, every interest group is duly represented at that conference.
say we need to convoke a proper national conference, and then you reference the ones we've had before. What was improper about those ones we had before?
Again, because the way they selected the members there was not too nationalistic. It was articulated by the head of state at the time, the president at the time. And some people continued to complain that they were not being represented by those who were at that conference. But even at that, we feel that the one under Jonathan, where some measure of consensus was arrived at on several of the topical issues, is a good starting point. Now, convoke a proper national conference. Ensure that everybody is represented. Bring that Jonathan's Constitutional Conference report and put there so that they can now look at it on the basis of, look, is everybody's interest covered? Or if not, the majority interests, are they covered? So this is my own position on that matter.
The challenge, you may agree, over time has been the process. I mean, we have, just as you have highlighted, we have had a few constitutional conferences. The challenge a number of people have pointed to concerning convoking a proper national conference, as you said, is the process. How? Now, if the federal government does not take the lead, and the National Assembly, as you say, is incapable of doing justice, how will it then happen?
The National Assembly, based on altruistic and, nationalistic interest of all of us, should pass a law to convoke that conference. And that law will be the basis upon which the conference will proceed. When they pass that law will indicate who will be the members, how they will represent who they will represent, how the document they produce will be, translated into a constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, properly so called. So that is my own way of articulating that point, that let the National Assembly pass a law that will convoke that conference. And then that law should state all the modalities that we are talking about. And then at the end of the day, a referendum, of course, will be proper to bring that constitution into force. All those should be contained in the law to be passed by the National Assembly.
Well, if you say you weren't completely confident that the National Assembly was capable of convoking a National Assembly, a national conference, how confident are you that that law that you expect the National Assembly to promulgate or to make for a national conference to be convoked would be satisfactory?
Well, we hope. Everybody, as I say, needs to embrace the fact that we want to be nationalists at this time. Let us not play partisan politics. Let us not play ethnic politics or tribal politics. Let us not be nepotistic. Nepotism has always been one of our issues in this country. So let the National Assembly, even as they are awkwardly constituted now, the members there are still Nigerians. And let them agree that, listen, let us do this for the sake of our country, because the country is falling to pieces, as we can see, and they too are involved. If Nigeria survives, all of us will survive. But if Nigeria fails, you and I can only guess what will become the fate of all of us.
Well, what are some of those things that you would expect, to be addressed in this national conference? Of course, there have been a lot of interests talking about state police, resource control, and the rest of them. What are some of those things you would want addressed at that national conference that may or may not have been addressed before?
Well, first, the structure of governance. We already know that we have three arms of government. We also know that we have a local government system. And this is replicated in the states. You have the executive, the judiciary, and the legislatures of the states, just as you have them at the federal level. Then the local governments, their functions are clearly stipulated in the Constitution. We have to look at the things that are, one, on the legislative list, because legislative power is where most of the power that I'm talking about needs to be, properly streamlined, is key. I, for one, feel that there are too many subjects, too many items put on the exclusive legislative list. As the exclusive legislative list is presently, the National Assembly can legislate on anything because you have both the exclusive list and the concurrent list. Now, if you reduce the items on the exclusive list, that is items the federal legislature can make laws on, you have, to a great extent, given power, more power to the states that they currently have. And when we relate back to the 1963 Constitution, which was our last, undisputed, shall I say, Constitution, we see there that many of the items that were on the legislative list there are no longer the same now because you have much, much more than you have in the current Constitution. So when you reduce the powers of the federal legislature, you have, by so doing, given the states certain powers. This thing we talk about devolution of powers. So that the states can have some measure of control over what is happening within their territories, and particularly the resources which are in their territories. Next, we have to talk about revenue allocation formula. Revenue allocation has been at the root of this thing that we say resource control. The minorities have felt that since the Willings Commission report, which was even articulated before independence in 1960, a lot of their fundamental rights, a lot of their interests have been taken away from them. So once you do that and ensure that the states have a greater measure of autonomy, then the states will return to their various legislatures and expect that they will make those laws to suit the minorities in their states and also the people's and other interests in their states.
Okay, but speaking about the states, sorry to jump in, just give us 3 minutes. We'll be back and continue from that perspective, the role of the states. That's in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're still talking about what steps, what kind of measures should the country be taking to solve the challenges, the security challenges that confront us. We've got OCG Okocha, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, former President of the NBA, still with us. Well, you were making reference to the states, but with respect to convening this conference or the laws that will bring about the conference, is it just the National Assembly that's got that role? Don't the states have any responsibility whatsoever to ensure that this conference happens? And what is it if they do?
Well, I think that this law, since it will be all-embracing and all-encompassing and relates to constitutional issues, should be made by the National Assembly. In that same law, the responsibilities of the states can be stated. You follow? Because the states also have to go back to their own assemblies and make a law that may assist in, one, how to select the representatives of the states. You know, most of our states are not as homogeneous as some. A few states are homogeneous. The people from the southwest states are mostly Yorubas. Most of the states like Rivers have minority groups, many ethnic groups. Perhaps in the south, the only nearly homogeneous state is Bayelsa. All of them there are Ijaws. But in our own state, I'm from Rivers State, we have many ethnic nationalities. I'm Ikwere, we have the Calabaris, we have the Ijaws, just like, Calabaris and Okrika and a few of the ethnic groups in Rivers are also Ijaws. We have the Ogonis, we have the Ibanis, Boni, Opobo. We also have the Ebayers. We have many ethnic groups in Rivers State. the inductees, and so on and so forth. So we need to also know that the states have a responsibility, and principally their own responsibility would be to know how to select their representatives in the national conference to ensure that all ethnic groups in the states, all political and social interests are also looked after. And you know, when I talk about social and political interests, I'm not talking of partisan politics, I'm talking about those who represent organizations, associations like the Nigerian Bar Association, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, teachers, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that may be included in that federal law that, you know, can be domesticated in the states so that things can flow without too many legal obstacles.
The selection process is going to be quite a chore because we've seen, or we saw even during the 2014 conference, how controversial the method for picking people was. Even the associations that were represented there, you know, had a lot of talk about, you know, why associations was the basis rather than ethnic groups. And we saw how they tried to get around that problem because they said that, you know, after all, the people in those associations represented Nigeria. Nonetheless, asking what you think of the fact that right now, this constitution as it stands, there are those who maintain that it hasn't even been put into operation. If you look into what is going on between the judiciary now and the executive, asking for independence, which they say is enshrined in the constitution. How are you sure that if we have a new document, what is currently happening to this constitution will not befall the new constitution that will come out?
Well, you can never be sure of the future. You know, every constitution can always have loopholes. Because we're human beings, we are not perfect. Nobody has made a perfect document. Even the American Constitution, you see, has undergone so many amendments that even till today, anybody can rise up and say this is in need of amendment, and they will go ahead and examine it on its merits. But you see, when there is a proper national conference, most of the issues that are at stake will be hopefully attended to, so that you'll have the minimum of difficulties with the new document that will be produced as our constitution. So, to answer your question, quite honestly, nobody can be sure. But let us make sure that the new document reduces to a large extent those current inconsistencies and incongruities in the current constitution, the 1999 constitution.
What do you make of those who say, I mean, looking at some of the difficulties that we have faced as a people and those that we're currently facing, especially with regards to security challenges in the state, what do you make of those who say that the state governors haven't fully exercised the powers that they have, and their fears that if they have even more, the chances are high that it will only be exercised at the whims and caprices of the governors?
Well, let me say this. Everything depends on the institutions that you establish under any constitution. If the institutions are strong, regardless of who is governor, regardless of who is president, the country, the states will continue to work. Look at America, for instance. I'm not saying it's a perfect democracy, but look at the difficulties they went through when President Donald Trump was in office. Yet the institutions were working. Trump may be saying one thing, the Congress may be saying another thing, the Democratic Party may be saying one thing, and the Republican Party, the two dominant parties in America, may be saying another thing. But the institutions were working. Law and order was properly articulated. The sheriffs, the mayors, and all those who were running government, regardless of political differences. So, no single governor under a situation where you have proper checks and balances can hijack the law enforcement arm of government.
frozen at the moment, but well, I'm sure that there will be some other perspectives to that, because I mean, there's this matter out there where some asking, look, is it going to be top-bottom approach to this or bottom-up approach? I mean, the perspectives that Makba is trying to seek is, I mean, you have heard people say, look, we need to ensure that we don't replicate the kind of challenges that the country is complaining of for the federal at the states. Because if the governors have a lot more powers devolved to them, how do you then ensure that the people don't get the short end of the stick? Well, he's talking about putting those institutions in place. But the state assemblies are properly constituted as it is today. But have we seen any of those state assemblies? Perhaps we should put it back to, I think we'll have them back now. Well, if I could just follow up on some of the questions, the response you were given about putting in place proper institutions. Take, for instance, in the state houses of assemblies are properly constituted, but we rarely see them stand up to the executive on behalf of the people. So what do you think is missing in that part, such that if more powers are devolved to the states, things will flow normally?
Let me say this. It's a moot point whether or not the state houses of assembly are properly constituted. The first thing is basically how were they elected into positions as representatives of particular constituencies in the states. You follow? And you know it. All through the federation, the governors are controlling the houses of assembly. And any speaker or any house that tries to assert independence, the next thing you hear is that they have impeached that speaker and another speaker is put in place. So really, it is the same thing I'm talking about, building institutions. Let us have a proper electoral system. Let us have a way where the true representatives of the people will be those sitting in that assembly. And then, you know, an assembly should have its own independence, just as we are clamoring for independence of the judiciary. The executive should also have its own independence, so that, except for those matters where there are concentric circles, no particular arm of government should control the other. Each one should be allowed to perform its functions and its roles as stipulated in the Constitution and under the law.
You know, one of the challenges that, you know, one can deduce from some of the things that have happened is that it's not a failure of the law or paucity of laws. It is that of execution. The question Chamberlain asked, for instance, the provisions of the Constitution and the laws are very clear on the functions of the houses of assembly. The National Assembly has its duty of oversighting the executive. We don't see much of that at the state level. So the question then is, what kinds of checks and balances should be there that would compel the National Assembly, the state houses of assembly, to do their jobs as expected by the law to the advantage and the benefit of the people?
First, financial autonomy. That is the subject matter of the current strike by judiciary workers and then legislative workers. Financial autonomy. If you take away from the executive the power to control how funds flow to the assemblies, then suddenly you will know that the governor cannot control what is happening in the state assembly. Just like if you take away what the power of release of funds is at the national level, the president cannot really control what is happening in the National Assembly. You understand? These are arms of government that are supposed to be independent, and their independence can only be secured when they are financially autonomous. So this is the main problem that we have.
But as things stand today, I mean, there are many say they haven't seen sufficient steps, perhaps some say body language of the relevant authorities to ensure, maybe the National Assembly now, to ensure that this process or this law, which you spoke about to bring about this conference, is going to happen. So if they don't go ahead and do that, what choice do you think the country has?
Sorry about that. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Did you get the question?
Yes. You asked, how do we ensure that this law is properly, articulated, right?
Yes, please.
Yes. I said Nigerians have to rise above personal interests, sectional interests, political interests. That is the key. Let us first accept that we are Nigerians. And we have a responsibility towards our country, towards the rest of our people. Once we have that nationalistic spirit, and very few can boast of having a nationalistic spirit. Everybody thinks about his family, his tribe, and so on and so forth. But once we can have members elected to those houses, those legislative houses, that have the nationalistic bent of mind, we can, to a reasonable extent, guarantee that they will do things for the interests of the country. Right now, they are doing things for their own personal interest. How many laws have they passed in the National Assembly since inception in 1999 that had to do with matters that impacted on national life? They are more interested in their personal allowances, their housing, their vehicles, and so on and so forth. And every day you hear one story of the other about a lobby going on. Somebody wants something, he has to lobby. Was there not a minister who was sacked before because he was trying to get National Assembly to do certain things? You follow? So we have to have people who are nationalists to be our representatives, so that when they get to either the National Assembly or the state assemblies, they would know that they are representing the country. Yes, everybody has a political interest, but look at it. Our political parties don't even have ideologies. So really, we are all in the same boat. Today, one decomes from the other, and tomorrow another decomes from that to another. So this is the regrettable thing about Nigerian politics at this stage.
Indeed, you've touched again on having credible people with nationalistic views in the National Assembly. Because I was just about to draw to your attention that if you put it out there as to whether or not the financial autonomy of the National Assembly has ensured its independence, some people, there will definitely be divided opinion as to how independent the current National Assembly is, despite its financial autonomy. But then again, you brought it down to having people with a certain mindset, especially that nationalistic mindset. Nonetheless, how do you think that, because looking at the entire electoral process, how do you think that power can return back to them, the true power of selection? Because we know that oftentimes the people go with the choices presented to them by the political parties, and oftentimes the choices are not very, very, let's say, pleasant. Sometimes the choices are like between the devil and the deep blue sea. How do you think that true power can return to the people in such a way that the options that are thrown up for elective offices are such that they're credible and people that they know will truly represent their interests?
It's not going to be easy, quite frankly, but let me say this. The credibility of the electoral umpire is paramount here. We must have a truly independent National Electoral Commission. Again, if somebody has the power to appoint the INEC chairman, who will be declared by a National Assembly which he controls or his party controls, you have difficulties. That's why I say it's not going to be easy. But we must have a credible electoral system in this country, because it's only by that credible election that we can be sure that those who are representing the people are those who are selected. And there's a limit to what political parties can do, because there should be a provision for independent candidates. And once you have a provision for independent candidates, then the people and the Electoral Commission will decide, will determine who gets there. I remember a situation where in my own ethnic group here in the First Republic, they selected somebody from another ethnic group to represent an area that was largely populated by my people and Ahuda people, the Puri people and the Ebeya people. And they select a party which was in control here, the NCNC, selected a candidate who was not even from any of our ethnic groups. Our own candidate now ran as an independent candidate, and he won the election in 1963. You follow? So this is the point, that if you have a credible electoral system and you have provisions that allow those who want to run, if they cannot get into contesting for elections through a political party, because the political party is too partisan and they have their own difficulties, you'll be surprised that, yes, nationalistic people, those who represent the people, will emerge as candidates in both the National Assembly and the state assemblies.
I don't know if you've had time to think about it, because INEC, every time we pose that question to INEC, they think that the logistics to have independent candidacy will be a nightmare. I don't know if you've had time to think about how it will be possible for us to incorporate that into our laws in such a way that we do not make a mess of the entire process.
What is the difficulty they have? Because you see, anybody who wants to contest election has to start by contesting at a certain level, which is invariably his ward level. He emerges from there to the local government level, from there to the state level. What is our next difficulty? Let the parties and the independent candidates decide. I'm running for election. I don't have to have a political office to run for election because I'm an independent candidate. I don't have to have party office nationwide before you register me as a political party. Those are difficulties that they are putting in front of those who really want to help this country and represent their people at these assemblies and in elective positions. So I don't see the difficulty that INEC can have. By the time it gets to state election, the number would have been reduced. And if you have 1,000 people running for office, INEC should be in a position to manage the logistics of how 1,000 people can contest for election. We have had zero-party elections in this country, and people were elected. So I don't see the difficulty that INEC has. Things can be properly structured so that those who represent the people can actually emerge.
All right. Just one more thing before we go. When you spoke about financial autonomy, can financial autonomy be a standalone, or what happens to the way judges are appointed? Isn't it of equal importance?
Yes, so we have currently a situation where we have this behemoth. I served on it at some point. In fact, I did 2 terms on the National Judicial Council. The National Judicial Council is inappropriate for a federation. Let me say so without mincing words. You cannot sit in Abuja and you are dictating to me how many courts I will have, how many judges I will have in River State. It does not go well. And you limit these things in such a way that those who really have litigation issues are not having enough courts and enough judges. Yet those who don't have regular, we have a different system of jurisdiction or jurisprudence in certain other areas. We have customary courts, we have Sharia courts. Let each state decide what courts it wants to have. And let each state decide who should be in those courts. You follow? And when you get to federal courts, then the National Judicial Council, which should be a supervisor, can look into what is happening at the Federal Judicial Service Commission that determines who gets to federal courts. In a federation, each state should be allowed some measure of autonomy, including the issue of appointing its own judges.
All right.
Determining how many courts it requires. In the old regions we had in those days, in the First Republic, each state could establish its own court of appeal. We don't need a court of appeal that is a federal court of appeal. We can have a federal court of appeal dealing with federal matters. But for state matters like land, like chieftaincy. What does the federation have to do with land and chieftaincy, for instance? Let the states appoint their own courts of appeal. And then constitutional issues are the only issues that will go to the Supreme Court. Right now, many will tell you that the Supreme Court is overworked. And there's a huge backlog of cases. And you know they will add the adage, justice denied, justice delayed is justice denied. So we need to restructure this country and give the states more powers than they currently have. That way we may be able to solve some of our lingering difficulties.
All right, well, good place to anchor. Mr. Onoese Okocha, MFR, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, former President of the NBA, former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice for Rivers State, and as you just heard, he served twice on the NJC. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, and let's take a look at some feedback from you now. You've got the first one.
Yes, Bayo says, in my humble view, the learned Silk has said it all. There is need to rejig the system. The presidential system of government which we practice is not presidential as we see it. It's a unitary system. There is that need to go back to the 1963 Constitution.
Ayodele says tackling insecurity. He says that the insecurity is calling on reinforcement on the part of leadership at all levels.
And Paul has this one, says, from the words of American president, if the Arab world does not recognize Israel's right to exist, there will be no peace in the Middle East. Same applies to us in Nigeria. If we do not restructure the way we govern ourselves, there will be no meaningful progress.
Well, Professor Enayana, speaking about Ebonyi security situation, says, it will be grave if we politicize insecurity in the polity. All stakeholders must sheath the political kimono and wear the toga of statesmanship as collectively we can upstage these outlaws. Playing game in Ebonyi isn't going to work as it is now.
Abel says, also talking about insecurity, it's so obvious that the security challenges the country is facing is caused by the political class. The 1999 politicians, still want to remain relevant and play the roles of godfather, while the others don't want to continue in that line. Pandemonium, he says.
And Bakare has this one, says the idea of a national conference may sound perfect. Excuse me. However, it doesn't seem like the solution. We have representatives of Nigeria in the National Assembly already. I would rather each senator or House of Rep member summon a town hall meeting and give feedback.
Olagunju, speaking about restructuring, says Nigeria is a case of perception trumping reality. We have a pyramid of failures that reshuffled, whichever side you look at it from, is always the problem. The steps to the solution are usually experienced failures. Well, let's try restructuring before it's too late.
And this mail from Dare says, all I know is that everything comes down to the will to change Nigeria. What we need is the will and the political will from all our leaders and someone ready to make the difference within leadership.
And this email is from Emmanuel Anine. It's a very long one. It says the problem of local government was created by the Constitution and not the making of state governors. The local government joint account is a creation of the Constitution. The governors cannot solve problems created by the joint account without constitutional amendment. What has the Senate President done in this regard? Equally, Section 7 of the Constitution empowers the State House of Assembly to create local government, but empowers National Assembly to sanction it. Where else does this happen? The Asaba Declaration was the Southern Governor's view on nationhood, and as such, this talks about local government autonomy is a complete distraction. In the national dialogue that the governors recommended, local government autonomy can be made an intrinsic part of the dialogue when inaugurated. If I may ask, how does Southern Governors' ban on open grazing, which is stoking tension between farmers and herders, amount to governors' quest for more powers? And he says national dialogue is the way to go.
Well, this one is from Pastor Sam Bala, who says, talking about legalizing marijuana for medical purposes. Nigeria loves cut and paste in almost everything, and they fail to go to the origin of the post to understand it. For goodness sake, why the push for, I called it, Igbo
well,
marijuana?
It's what he calls it there.
He says we have several other herbs that are potent, which have not been explored fully. Let's not deceive ourselves. Legalizing the use of hemp component for drugs will not isolate the abuse. Get ready for hemp farms to be invaded by barons. Who knows?
Well, that's just it, I guess.
But I do know that conversation is going to go on. In the moment he makes his entrance, his debut into the National Assembly, I think the reactions are going to be worth following. But that's it for this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation.
You're even expecting it to go as far as the National Assembly already. Okay, it's there.
Yeah.
Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful day.
I just hope there will be no physical when he's on the floor. I'm Chamberlain, so we'll see you next time.
There will be no sampling on the floor of the house.